The film opens by introducing a man named John. He is the son of a billionaire from India who has been living in the United States. Along with his cousin Akash, John spends his days enjoying extreme luxury. Parties, nightlife, and women dominate their lives, and responsibility is the last thing on their minds. John's lifestyle is the complete opposite of his father's. Even though his father is incredibly wealthy, he lives modestly because every bit of his fortune came from years of hard work. That is why he is shocked when he sees John's monthly expenses reach 3 million rupees in just 1 month. To him, that kind of money could support an entire village in India. This reckless spending, especially on parties and women, deeply disappoints him. At home, John's father finally confronts him. He is fed up with watching his son waste money without any sense of value or purpose. He urges John to change his ways and reflect on his behavior. John, however, sees nothing wrong with his lifestyle. In his mind, this is exactly how the son of a billionaire should live, especially when money seems endless. The advice completely falls on deaf ears. John and Akash go right back to their old habits and head straight to a nightclub. There, John becomes interested in a beautiful woman and starts dancing with her. His actions spark anger from her boyfriend, and before long, the situation turns into a physical fight.
Dude, back off.
The chaos ends with both John and Akash being arrested and thrown into jail. Their father is forced to step in once again to bail them out, and this time his disappointment runs even deeper. As if things were not bad enough, their house is suddenly attacked by the same man whose girlfriend John had flirted with. The man attempts to kill John, but the bullets narrowly miss. This incident pushes John's father to his breaking point. He realizes that as long as John stays in America, trouble will always follow. The decision is made to send John to India. This decision changes everything. This is ABCD, American-born confused Desi. However, despite being completely unprepared to live independently, John has no choice. His father is firm and refuses to back down. Meanwhile, in India, public attention is focused on the upcoming elections. This is where Bhargav enters the story. He is a cunning businessman who owns several factories and is now running for political office. Party leaders warn him that he must boost his public image and address the factory waste problem that has angered many citizens. Eventually, John and Akash arrive in India. Their shock begins the moment they leave the airport, where they are picked up by an old, broken-down car. That shock only grows when they see their new home. Instead of luxury, they are faced with a rundown house in a slum-like neighborhood. John immediately tries calling his father, but the calls go unanswered. He had expected a lavish home similar to what he had in America. Furious and humiliated, he throws away the house key and decides to stay at the most luxurious hotel in Hyderabad. Because they are visitors from the United States, the hotel allows them to stay and pay later at checkout. The next day, John and Akash head to a shopping mall, mostly to admire the local girls. That is when John accidentally bumps into a young woman named Desi. The moment he sees her, he falls in love. Confident from years of being a playboy in America, John approaches her and tries to get her number. To his surprise, Desi shows absolutely no interest in him. John does not take the rejection well. Feeling insulted, he loses his temper and angrily lashes out at her.
Can I get your number?
Yeah, sure. 42
42
02
02
42.
On their way back from the mall, John and Akash decide to rent a car. But when it is time to pay, every ATM card they have suddenly stops working. Confused, they rush to the bank to check what is going on. That is when the truth comes out. All of the money in their accounts has already been withdrawn by John's father. Panicked, John immediately tries calling his father. He begs for money to be sent right away, but his father refuses. From now on, John will only receive a small monthly allowance while living in India. Furious, John accuses his father of playing games with him and says he wants to go back to America. That night, John contacts all of his friends and asks them to send money so he can return home. Not a single one of them is willing to help. Even John's mother cannot do anything, because this punishment is entirely his father's decision. Now, these two spoiled young men are completely stuck in India. They cannot pay for their hotel anymore. Their only option is to sneak out, but their escape fails and they are caught. With no money left, the hotel confiscates their passports. The only free place they can stay is the run-down house their father had prepared for them. Since John had thrown away the key earlier, they are forced to search for it again. Luckily, a neighbor's young daughter had picked it up. For the first time, John and Akash truly reflect on how much their lives have changed. There are no luxury facilities, no comfort, and no special treatment. Whether they like it or not, they have to adapt. They start saving every bit of money they have. They cook their own meals and wash their own clothes, carefully stretching their allowance so it can last the entire month. The next day, John calls his father again. This time, he apologizes and begs to be allowed back to America. His father still refuses to forgive them. Instead, he tells John and Akash to continue their education in India. There is no need to return to the United States. Their father has already enrolled them in a local university. With no other option left, John finally gives in and accepts his father's decision. The following day, they head to campus by bus. The ride is uncomfortable, packed with people, and far from what they are used to. They are studying at Nava Bharat University, which turns out to be owned by Bhargav. At the same time, Bhargav orders the campus administrators to aggressively collect tuition fees. With elections approaching, he desperately needs money. Any student who cannot pay is ordered to leave the university immediately. On their first day at university, John and Akash are introduced to their classmates. Since they have missed 2 weeks of lessons, the lecturer asks Desi to help them catch up. It turns out that Desi is also a student at the same campus. Desi cannot refuse the lecturer's request, so she starts tutoring John. This immediately gives John a new reason to attend classes, and as they spend more time together, the distance between them slowly fades. After studying, Desi walks John home. When she sees where he lives, she is shocked by his living conditions. At that moment, John pretends to be poor. He tells Desi that he is living in that place because his father kicked him out. He paints his father as an angry alcoholic who does not care about his family. The story is completely made up to hide the truth that he is actually the son of a billionaire. Fortunately for John, the lie works, and Desi is willing to befriend him. The next day at campus, a classmate named Mira is called into the administration office. Unable to pay her tuition before the deadline, she is expelled from the university. The decision devastates her and pushes her into a very dark place. That night, while John and Akash are drunk at a bar, Desi contacts them with shocking news. Mira has attempted to do the unthinkable and is now being treated at the hospital. Bhargav does not want the incident to reach the media, so he contacts Arjun, a senior at the university, to handle the situation. Bhargav agrees to pay Mira's tuition in full in exchange for silence. Desi is deeply disappointed by Mira's parents, who accept the money and agree to stay quiet. Not long after, John arrives at the hospital, but Arjun tells him to stay out of it. Arjun insults John and looks down on him, seeing him as nothing more than a useless poor man. Tired of being humiliated, John finally reveals the truth. He explains that he is not poor at all, but the son of a billionaire. He chose to live modestly in India and study at this university because he wanted to become independent. He willingly left his wealth behind in America and refused to rely on his parents. John then turns the insult back on Arjun, pointing out that Arjun is the one truly trapped by money. He has been covering up Bhargav's corruption simply for financial gain. The next day, the campus is buzzing with news about John after a newspaper publishes his story. Overnight, his name spreads across social media. His decision to abandon wealth and live simply in India captures public attention and inspires many young people to rethink their own values. In a very short time, John and Akash become widely known. John enjoys the sudden fame, especially as Daisy grows closer to him and feels increasingly comfortable by his side. John's life at this point is far from comfortable. Someone who once enjoyed fine food and endless convenience now often goes to bed hungry. On many nights, he survives by drinking water just to quiet the hunger. Thankfully, a kind young neighbor occasionally brings him food, offering small moments of warmth in an otherwise difficult routine. As John's popularity continues to grow, the media begins showing up at his home. Everything he does suddenly becomes news. Videos of him living in a rundown neighborhood spread across television and online platforms. He is now known as the billionaire's son who willingly chose a simple life. Back in America, John's parents see these reports and realize how much he has changed. The son they once saw as irresponsible is now an overnight sensation in India. John's rising fame earns him a nomination for a National Youth Icon contest. He learns about it through Desi, and the news fills both him and Akash with excitement. Winning the contest would mean prize money, and that money could finally help them return to America. Without wasting time, John and Akash head to the TV station to learn more. They discover that the winner will be decided through public voting, which has already begun. The station executives explain that Bhargav is currently leading the polls, followed by Naveen, with John in third place. John's biggest obstacle is clearly Bhargav. As a politician, Bhargav wants to win not for the prize money, but to boost his image ahead of the election. He stages public acts to look relatable, pretending to eat street food, and even donating blood, all carefully crafted for appearances. People who see through his act openly criticize him, especially since many residents have fallen ill due to pollution from his factories. Realizing how tough the competition is, John decides to step up. He becomes more active in social causes to gain support, driven by the hope of winning the contest and returning to America. His efforts earn him more votes, although he still trails behind Bhargav and Naveen. The next day, people from John's neighborhood ask for his help. They want to fight together to shut down Bhargav's factory, which has been dumping waste into the river and damaging public health for years. John is invited to join a public protest so the government will finally hear their demands. John and Akash have no real reason to refuse, so they show up at the demonstration. Soon, the protest becomes headline news covered by media outlets everywhere. When Bhargav hears about the protest, he orders the police to break it up. At the same time, he secretly plants hired thugs among the protesters. Tensions rise as police demand the crowd to disperse. The planted thugs start throwing stones at the officers, deliberately turning the police against the public. Chaos quickly breaks out. Police begin beating the protesters. Elderly people, women, and even children are caught in the violence. The community tries to shield John from harm, but the situation spirals out of control. John and Akash are beaten, arrested, and taken into custody at the police station. Everything is captured and reported by the media. Unexpectedly, John's arrest works in his favor. Public sympathy grows rapidly. The voting results for the Youth Icon contest shift dramatically, placing John in first place. In the end, he defeats Bhargav and wins the contest. Inside the jail, John and Akash argue with each other, blaming one another for how things turned out. What began as a calculated move for image building has now landed them behind bars. Not long after, Bhargav comes to see them. He admits that he has lost the Youth Icon contest, but he also reveals that he holds damaging secrets about John and Akash. Bhargav knows the real reason John is in India. He even has copies of their arrest records from America, including proof that their passports were once seized by a hotel due to unpaid bills. With all this evidence in hand, Bhargav makes an offer. He promises to pay for their return to America and keep John's lies away from the media, but only under one condition. John must publicly claim that Bhargav is his inspiration during the Youth Icon Award ceremony. He must repair Bhargav's public image and help him gain sympathy ahead of the election. With no other option, John and Akash agree. They are released from jail and the Youth Icon Award ceremony finally begins. At the start of his speech, John begins by praising Bhargav and presenting him as a personal inspiration. The moment confuses and disappoints the crowd, who cannot understand why John suddenly seems to side with someone they distrust. Midway through, John pauses and realizes what he is about to do. He stops himself and chooses a different path. Instead of continuing the praise, he gathers the courage to expose Bhargav's wrongdoing, refusing to lie to the public any longer. John explains that he was forced to speak positively about Bhargav in exchange for silence and protection. He openly admits that much of his public image has been built on lies. That moment filled him with shame and gratitude, and it pushed him to become a better person. He takes responsibility for every lie he has told and asks for forgiveness. Before ending his speech, John urges the authorities to shut down Bhargav's factory, which has caused suffering for countless people. He also calls on the government to care more deeply about the poor, who continue to live in hardship. The crowd responds with thunderous applause. Faced with public pressure, the government has no choice but to close the factory. Bhargav is removed from his political party as a result of his own actions. After becoming a youth icon, John chooses to continue living simply and dedicates himself to serving the community. His father arrives with immense pride, deeply moved by the change he sees in his son. Although his father invites him to return to America, John declines. He chooses to stay in India to help those in need and to remain with the woman he loves, Desi. With heartfelt approval, John's father blesses their relationship. John moves forward with his new life in India, standing beside Desi and embracing the path he has chosen. So the moral of the story is, if you act like a billionaire playboy long enough, life will eventually send you to a slum, take your ATM cards, steal your passport, and teach you empathy the hard way.